Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things to better yourself? Like reading the books, setting the goals, and watching the motivational videos. But somehow, you always end up back in the same situations. And every time, you swear it's going to be different. But then life hits, resistance shows up, and just like that, you fall back into the same cycle. Well, not anymore, because today I'm going to help you change that. Hey, friend, I'm Christy, a board certified nurse practitioner, health coach, and trauma survivor. This is Trauma Free, where I help you change your mind and change your life just like I did. And what I'm about to share with you doesn't come from textbooks. It comes from real life, lived experiences, backed by science and psychology. So let's get straight to it. Most people never change, not because they lack willpower, but because they've never actually looked at where their current path is taking them. They've never asked themselves, what's the real cost of me staying the same? We often talk about dream boards and future goals, but we rarely sit with the discomfort of what happens if nothing changes. And until you do, you'll keep quitting the moment it gets uncomfortable, because your brain will always choose the familiar over the unfamiliar until the cost of staying the same becomes louder than the fear of change. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make the subconscious conscious by uncovering the hidden reason you get trapped in cycles of pain. I get it. Your reasons for not changing are valid. You're not lazy and you're not just making excuses. You're most likely exhausted from having to survive, carrying trauma that no one sees. You might be battling chronic feelings of self-doubt or emotional pain that's become so familiar it now feels like your norm. And to make things even worse, due to your biology, your brain is wired to resist change. So you will always choose familiar misery over unfamiliar freedom every single time, because you're wired to take the safer route, even when it hurts. In psychology, this is called homeostatic resistance, the body's tendency to resist change and maintain a stable internal state, even when it's not optimal or when change is desired. So your nervous system is trying to keep you in the same emotional temperature you've always known. And the moment you try to switch things up, even for the better, your brain feels like it's danger. But if you don't change, where will this path lead you? Most people avoid this question because looking forward with all honesty can feel terrifying. But avoiding it, that's how you wake up 10 years from now full of regret and still wondering, why is everything the same? This pattern is called future disconnection. And according to research, when you can't emotionally connect with your future self, you can't really care about them. And your brain treats this version of you like a stranger. And what do we do with strangers? We dismiss them. So you end up sacrificing and going for the now and ignoring what it will cost you later. But here's the thing. Studies using MRI scans show that when people vividly imagine their future, especially a painful unwanted version, it activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the region of the brain responsible for self-regulation and future-oriented decisions. So when you finally see the consequences of staying stuck, your brain becomes far more motivated to change. This is why dream boards alone aren't enough, because sometimes the most powerful motivation doesn't come from visualizing your greatest dreams. It comes from facing the nightmare you refuse to live. Because once you see what's really at stake, the relationships you'll ruin, the purpose you'll never fulfill, and the health and youthfulness you'll lose, you stop playing small. You stop waiting for permission, and you start moving, not out of fear, but out of love for the version of you that's still obtainable. I want you to forget the vision boards for just a minute. Not because dreaming big isn't powerful, it definitely is, but because most people don't change when they imagine the dream. They change when they come face to face with the horrors of staying the same. So let's go there. I want you to write the version of your life that you never want to live. And this is what I call reverse manifestation. Not to attract pain, but to interrupt it before it becomes your reality. And ask yourself, what happens if I keep procrastinating for another 5 years? What does my body look and feel like if I keep staying stuck in my head, numbing myself with food, alcohol, or social media? What kind of relationship will I have with my partner or my children if I keep avoiding the hard conversations and settling for less? How much potential will I bury if I keep waiting for confidence to show up before I take action? Write the day. Where do you wake up? What does your body feel like? What thoughts run through your mind? Are you proud of who you become or quietly ashamed? Do you feel joy or just survival? And be honest, because it's not negative thinking. It's actually conscious forecasting, and it's the psychological process of predicting how future events will make us feel. In Stoic philosophy, this practice is called premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils, which literally means the premeditation of what could go wrong. And they didn't do this to be overwhelmed by fear. They did it to prepare their minds, sharpen their focus, and cultivate gratitude for stronger mindsets to better handle challenges. In psychology, this is called negative visualization, and research shows that this kind of mental contrast of visualizing both the dream and the obstacle dramatically increases follow through, motivation, and long term behavioral change. Because when you allow yourself to feel the emotional cost of staying stuck, you don't just think you should change. Your limbic brain, which is your emotional center, feels the urgency to make it happen. And when the body feels it, the change becomes inevitable. But here's the warning. You can't do this from a place of shame. And this isn't about beating yourself up. It's about waking yourself up. Because every day you delay, every time you rationalize staying the same, you are casting a vote for the very life that you don't want. So ask yourself, if I keep living like this, where does this lead me? Now, it's time to turn the mirror around because change isn't just about what you want. It's about whether your current habits will actually take you there. So I want to ask you some questions that most people avoid. What do I really think about myself when the noise quiets down? Who do I spend the most time with? And do they reflect the life that I'm trying to build or the one I'm trying to escape? Then ask yourself, am I moving towards the future that I desire or towards the future that I dread? Because here's the thing. Your brain is wired for efficiency, not fulfillment. So it will repeat whatever pattern is easiest, even if that pattern is self-destructive. Which brings us to one of the most important concepts in psychology, cognitive dissonance. It's the internal discomfort that you feel when your values say one thing, but your behaviors say something else. And with that discomfort, your brain will either help you change that behavior or it will create a story to justify staying the same. So you end up pushing things off to another day or making up some kind of excuse so you don't feel so bad. But the problem with that is every time you choose the comfort or justification, you reinforce that identity you're trying to escape from. And you're here because you're done with that. You don't want to live in this almost version of your life anymore. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for peace and alignment, where your thoughts, your choices, and your actions match. And this doesn't mean you never mess up. It means you're done living out of sync with the person you want to become. So ask yourself truthfully and lovingly, if nothing changes, am I okay becoming this version of me? Because if the answer is no, then congratulations. You just activated self honesty, which is always the first step towards changing. Let me just say this: you are not at fault for your past. You didn't choose your trauma. You didn't ask for the abandonment, the chaos, or the pressure to survive through such difficult things. But you are responsible for your future. Because the moment you take radical responsibility, you stop waiting for someone to come and save you, and you start showing up as the one who rescued yourself. From a psychological standpoint, this is the shift from what's called an external locus of control, where you believe life just happens to you, to an internal locus of control, where you believe you have the power to shape your outcomes, even if you didn't choose the circumstances. This shift is critical for healing, and research shows that people with the internal locus of control have higher resilience, lower anxiety, and a stronger sense of purpose. And this is when self love becomes real. And it's not the watered down kind of self love where you treat yourself maybe to a bubble bath. I'm talking about loving yourself fully to the core, because self love is boundaries, self love is discipline. And self love is saying, I love myself too much not to give my all to myself anymore. And that's what real love looks like. It looks like waking up early, not because you feel like it, but because you know your future depends on it. It looks like moving your body, not to punish yourself, but because you refuse to abandon yourself ever again. It looks like cutting ties with chaotic people and situations, not because it's easy, but because peace is your new existence. And it looks like you're doing the inner work, so your kids don't have to heal from your unhealed pain. You have to stop letting your past be the reason you don't elevate, because every small action of self respect, every time you say no to what drains you and yes to what builds you, you're telling your nervous system, I am safe right now and I've got me. Here's something most people never learn: you don't need to feel ready to change. You just need to feel responsible. And you don't need more willpower. You just need systems, tools that actually work for you. Most people wait for the perfect time, the perfect scenario, or the perfect mindset. But neuroscience shows us that motivation is unreliable because it fluctuates with your mood, your sleep, your blood sugar, and even the weather. So if you rely on motivation to change, you'll always quit on the days you need it most. So here's what works. Instead of chasing motivation, build systems that create lasting change. For some people, that's therapy or working with a coach like me to assist with processing and rewiring old patterns. For others, it's movement, getting out of your head and into your body, which regulates your nervous system and restores safety. Or maybe for you, it's journaling and meditation. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be trendy. It just has to be consistent. Because behavior change doesn't last when it's based on shame, pressure, or shoulds. It lasts when it's tied to your identity. So instead of saying, I'm trying to get healthy, say I'm someone who honors my body, or I need to stop people pleasing, to I protect my peace at all cost. And these aren't just affirmations, they're neurological anchors. Because when you claim an identity, your brain starts building cognitive alignment to look for ways to act in accordance with who you say you are. And even on the hard days and when no one's watching, you don't have to copy anyone else. You just have to find what feels right with your nervous system, by what feels safe, and what feels possible. Then commit to showing up imperfectly, consistently, and with self compassion. And watch your identity and your life start to align. You don't need to work harder. You don't need to shame yourself into a breakthrough. You just need to make a decision that you will no longer abandon yourself. Not when things get uncomfortable, not when the old stories resurface, and not when you're scared of what growth might require. Because the most powerful motivation doesn't come from shame, guilt, or hustling. It comes from love, real, unconditional self love. The kind that says, I'm not fighting to become someone else. I'm fighting to return to who I was before the world forced me to be someone else. And when you clearly see the pain you're running from, and you finally believe in the peace you're capable of, you stop chasing change out of desperation, and you start creating it from the divine being that you are. In neuroscience, this is called approach motivation. It's the kind of drive that arises not from fear of failure, but from love for your future. So here's the question I want you to sit with today. Does your self love just live in your thoughts or in your daily actions? Because real self love lives in your habits, your choices, what you tolerate, and what you finally say no to. And if your future self could see you right now, the version of you who's healed and grounded in peace, would they thank you for starting today, or would they be begging you not to wait another day? If this message resonated with you, subscribe to Trauma Free for weekly videos that blend neuroscience, psychology, and life experience to help you rewire your mind. And if you feel called, drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts. And until next time, stay trauma free and take care.